It's May 8th, 1945, and streets in cities across the world are full of people, celebrating the end of more than 5 years of conflict.
Years full of suffering and death and sacrifice.
World War II began because of this man, Adolf Hitler. Hitler rose to power in the early 1930s. He was a powerful speaker who took advantage of the anger that a lot of Germans were feeling after losing the First World War and being forced to surrender money, land and military power.
Deutschland nicht geschenkt erhielten, sondern selbst nicht schaffen mussten.
Hitler and the Nazi Party promised to restore Germany to its former greatness and directed the country's anger towards a number of minority groups, especially the Jewish community. He wanted to create a so-called pure German race, which he called Aryan, and punished people who didn't fit this image or who disagreed with the Nazis. In 1938, the Nazis took over Austria. But it wasn't until they invaded Poland in 1939, with the help of the Soviet Union, that World War II began. You see, Poland had strong allies, France and Britain, who declared war on Germany. As part of the British Empire, Australia joined the war, along with New Zealand and Canada. Germany had some early wins. They conquered Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, and then invaded France in 1940. They were joined by Italy, although it later changed sides, and Japan, which was waging its own war with China. But soon, more nations joined the other side, known as the Allies. In 1941, the USSR went to war with Germany after it was invaded by the Nazis, in an operation that killed around 8 million people. The same year, China also joined the Allies, along with the US. It was brought into the war when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, killing over 2,000 people. There was now fighting taking place from the streets of Europe to the deserts of Africa to the jungles of the Pacific. Meanwhile, back in Germany and German-occupied countries, Adolf Hitler was carrying out the biggest mass killing the world had ever seen. The Nazis built prisons, known as concentration camps, where they sent millions of Jewish people, along with religious and ethnic minorities, people with disabilities, different sexual identities, and those who opposed the Nazis. 11 million people died in what's now known as the Holocaust. For a while, Germany looked set to win the war, but a few big battles changed everything. Germany tried to invade the city of Stalingrad in Russia, but underestimated Soviet forces and the bitterly cold weather. Then, 1 year later, in 1944, on what is now known as D-Day, the Allies carried out the biggest ever land, air and sea mission to take back Nazi-occupied Europe. They took back France, along with other parts of Western Europe, while Soviet forces pushed back Germans from the other side. In January 1945, one of the biggest concentration camps, Auschwitz, was liberated by the Soviet army. And in April, the Soviets stormed Berlin. In less than 2 weeks, Germany's capital was captured and Hitler was dead. A few days later, what was left of the Nazi Party surrendered.
This is a solemn but glorious hour.
It wasn't the end of the war. That would come in September when Japan surrendered. But it was still a huge cause for celebration. 80 years later, crowds continue to gather in cities across the world to remember what the day meant then and now. World leaders say it's important for us to remember the past, to honour the people who died, and make sure history does not repeat itself.
We shall have failed, and the blood of our dearest will have flowed in vain if the victory which they died to win does not lead to a lasting peace.